and today it's time for another weekly wrap-up. I guess this time it's technically a 2-week wrap-up, just because last week was insanely hot and I just couldn't get the energy to film. It was just like, I don't do well in the heat at all. But anyway, in the last 2 weeks, I read a little bit, not a whole lot of novels though. I don't know, I think just because it's been so hot lately over here. I know a lot of people, if summer is the time to get reading done and they blast through books, but I'm always reading way less in the summer because it's so hot and I'm tired. But I did read some books. I got some manga and I read that in the past 2 weeks, and I did a little bit of reading for the reading rush, although that didn't end up going so well. Just because I didn't read that much for it. That was just a dead week for me, I guess. So, yeah, most of what I read was manga. To read a few novels, I'm just gonna have at it right now. So, first off, I finished Words of Radiance by Sanderson, the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. And this was a very good book. This was an easy 5-star read. Or at least a 4.5, maybe. I don't know. It was way up there. And it was certainly a lot more interesting to me than the first book, Way of Kings. I think Way of Kings I gave like a 3 or like maybe a 4, but it's leaning more 3. This is a lot better. The pacing is a lot more interesting for me. We have characters that are interacting with each other this time instead of just all separated out, and some of them doing politics stuff and some of them doing more interesting stuff. It's like, no, everybody's all mingling together, or they start to more mingle together, and they're starting to address the threat at hand. Shalon, which is one of my favorite characters, has a major part in here, and I really enjoy that. There are a few other characters in here that have really good moments, and it's like, yes. There's some especially good character interactions between Shalon and Kaladin. They kind of butt heads a little bit, and it's really good. Obviously, I can't go too much into depth without going into spoilers, because this is a second book, and a lot happens in here too, but yeah, it was just very, very good. I am looking forward to the third one, Oathbringer, I think. I think I won't be reading that until September, because that's when Murphy Nepier's buddy reads are going to be reading it. So I'm going to be trying to read along with them then. Then I have The Ancient Magus Bride, Volume 9 by Kore Yamazaki. This is a series, like a fantasy series, with a girl that's supposed to be this skelly guy's bride. It does a lot of working through the main character trying to accept herself and be more confident, but also there's a few sinister things going on in the background with all the fae stuff, and there's a lot of cool fae in here, and that's kind of why I like it. This volume wasn't the best volumes that I've read in the series. It finished off the first arc in the series, and it kind of felt a little bit rushed. I feel like there could have been another volume, maybe made it a little bit less rushed, but maybe what ended up happening is maybe it was going to be 1.5, and the mangaka didn't want to do a half and then like half a new arc, because she did do a huge break in between this one and the 10th volume. I get that, I guess, if that's the case, but it's still kind of annoying that it's just like, it's really rushed. Okay, this is the end of the arc. Oh well. I am still looking forward to reading some more of this at some point. I don't know, because I don't plan out my manga reading very well. I just kind of go willy-nilly, but it was fine. I think the next arc involves the main character going to university, like a magic university, so that might be interesting, or a college. I don't know what it is. Magic school. That could be fun, though. Then I read James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. This is about a boy whose life really sucks, and then comes across some magic, like, wormy things, and they create this giant peach and make some bugs, like, have human conscience, I guess. And James goes on an adventure. Yeah, that's basically it for plot-wise. It's pretty simple. And I didn't really like it that much, honestly. I have already seen the movie, so maybe that taints my perception of this a little bit. But this just felt like James was just being tugged along at all these problems, and he rarely did anything himself. There was one issue that they get into where he hooks some seagulls together, and that he actually does, but then they face some other problems that they just like, there's a problem, run away, and there's their solution. So they just run away, or I guess fly away in this case, because it's flying. What is that? So, like, he doesn't feel like he has any agency, I guess that's the word. And in here, I couldn't really get across the characters' personalities so well, and there was a lot of times where there was songs, and I just didn't like them that much. So there wasn't really much in here that I enjoyed, really. I like the concept of it, I guess, but didn't care for this. I do like the movie a lot better. Well, at least when I watched it a long time ago. Maybe I don't like it as much now if I watched it, but I do like what I remember of the movie a lot better than this. Then I did a reread of How Not to Write a Novel, 200 Classic Mistakes, and How to Avoid Them, a Misstep by Misstep Guide by Howard Mittelmark and Sandra Newman. It's kind of in the title what this is about. It's a nonfiction with a bunch of tips on how to not write a novel. It's a very funny nonfiction in that all of the tips that they give a sample snippet on what not to do, and they're not pulling from any existing books. They write them themselves, and pretty much they're all really funny, and they get across the point very well on what you should not do. Obviously, these examples are very extreme versions of what they're saying don't do, but I still find it very entertaining. I'm not sure if I want to write a novel or not. Like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I want to write a novel, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know about that. But, I mean, even when I'm not really sure, / I don't think so, I just really like the bad examples here. I think it shows the point very well and explains everything pretty well, I think. There is a section on what not to do to get your book published, like, cover letters and things, and how to send it. And I don't know how up-to-date that is. I don't know how relevant, I guess, that is, because this is a little bit older. This was published in 2008, so it is a little bit on the older side in terms of the publishing part of it, but I still think almost everything in here is relevant no matter what you do. So if you want something humorous and want some tips then on how not to write a novel, then maybe check this out. If you're a pro writer or something, you might not find any actual use from this, perhaps. But from an entertainment value to me, I think I enjoy this quite a bit. And for the last few books, there's really quite a few books, really, I just went ham on manga and one graphic novel comic. So there's a lot of volumes here, but there's really only 3 different series, so this shouldn't take too long, I think. So for one of them, I read Moomin, the complete Tove Jansson comic strip, volume 1. This is a collection of her Moomin comics like strips that appeared in newspapers, I think. This is the first one. And Moomin is he's supposed to be like a troll or something, and it's a very whimsical, like kind of silly adventures that he gets into, and it's pretty cute. And kind of funny a little bit. Some of the things he gets into are a little strange. I mean, these are pretty old comics, though, so I give it a little bit of a pass. In here, it's like 3 or 4 different stories told in a bunch of different strips, and I really enjoyed all of them. So I kind of picked this on a whim because Moomin seemed interesting, but I've never read anything Moomin related. So I just kind of bought this and was like, oh, I hope it's good, and I really like it. So I'm probably going to read some more Moomin in the future as well. And then I read Ran in the Grey World Volume 2, Volume 3, and Volume 4 by Irie. This is a manga series about this magical family, mostly focused on Ran, who's a little kid and who has these magic sneakers that turn her into a grown-up. So I haven't finished it quite yet. There's 7 volumes, I think, and this is the latest one I read, number 4. So I can't give a full detail on what I think, but it is very well drawn, and it is very, like, magical, like, woo, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely not something that has a particularly noticeable continuous plot, at least at the beginning. There is a few things that happen later. There's this troublesome bug that starts messing stuff up a little bit later. I think the 3rd volume is when it starts. But overall, it's just a lot of fun, and I really like it. So the only things I would say is one, this is not a children's manga. There is definitely some nudity and, like, sexy stuff. It's not too much sex or anything like that, and it's more hinted at, but there's definitely some nudity in here. And the other thing is that there is a little bit of a romance subplot in here that I think some people would find a little bit I don't mind it so much. It doesn't bother me that much. But the thing is, Ran goes around and causes trouble in her adult form, and she comes across this man, and I don't know if she falls in love with him, because I don't think she understands what love is, but she hangs out a lot with him, and it's like, hey, I like you, kind of thing. Let's do things together, and it's very silly and playful, but he actually really, like, wants to get in her pants, basically. And so when you think about it, it's like, oh no, she's like a little kid, and yeah, it's kind of like, but it's not like the man knows that she's a kid. Like, to him, it looks like she's an adult, and she's in an adult form, so yeah, that would be normally okay. But I did see a few comments about that, and I was like, yeah, I guess that would be a little bit iffy for some people, might make some people uncomfortable. And it's not a hugely minor part either. It's becoming less minor now because it's focusing more on a serious plot now, but just keep that in mind. If that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you don't want to read this. But otherwise, I really recommend it so far. I'll see what I feel like in the last 3 volumes that I still need to read, but yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. And then the last manga volumes that I read, and the last volumes of anything that I've read, really, was The Way of the Househusband Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 by Kouske Ono. This is a comedy series about a guy who used to be in the Yakuza, and he's since retired from that and is now a house husband. He's the husband who stays at home and takes care of the chores and cooking and stuff like that. The problem is he's not used to being like a normal civilian a bit. He still has like mannerisms and speeches, or it says things in certain ways that it's like, yeah, he's in the Yakuza like that. But it contrasts with him like making cute outfits for dogs and making a cute bento for his wife and going to a fitness class with a bunch of women in his neighborhood. So he legitimately likes being a house husband and doing all these like stay-at-home husband type things. But he still like has a face like of Yakuza. He's still kind of like menacing looking, and I really like it so much. It's definitely, this is comedy, so it doesn't have a huge overarching plot, but I do really like it. Unfortunately, I'm already up to date. This is a fairly new manga series, but I want more. It's so good. I love it. So those are all the books that I read in the past 2 weeks. I did start on 2 others, but I didn't get very far for 2 different reasons. The first one was the regular Magic High School Volume 1 by Tsutomu Sato. I don't remember how far I got in this, but I accidentally spilled some water on this and it kind of warped a bit, so I had to put it under some heavy books to straighten out, and it's not so bad now. I don't think you can see it on the camera, but before it was like, yep, that's warped a bit. So I saved it, at least, but I didn't get very far because of that. And also, as far as I got, you know, they go to school and stuff, and you learn about the magic systems and things like that in here. And the problem with this is that it goes a little bit too in-depth, I find, into the magic system. If you like a magic system with a lot of depth, and you don't mind that it's almost like a science, like they use gadgets to harness the magic and they know exactly how it interacts with gadgetry things, and I don't really know. Like, they basically use code to do magic, essentially. If you like that kind of in-depth stuff, you might really like how this does that. But for me, it just kind of gets way too complicated, and I'm just like, what's going on? I don't know. But like I said, I didn't get very far, so maybe near the end it'll stop doing that, because it's like, oh yeah, we've already told you how this magic system works, so we don't need to do that anymore. But I'm not really sure about how I'm feeling about this so far. But then the other book that I started sort of recently, and I didn't get super far yet, was The Castle in the Air by Diana Wynne Jones. This is the second book in the Howl's Moving Castle series. Although they're not related, it's, I think, in the same world, and you might meet some characters from Howl's Moving Castle, but this stars completely different characters. This takes place in like a Middle Eastern, like Arabic feeling place, and it stars like a carpet merchant that buys a legitimately magic carpet and goes off to a magical place and sees a princess and stuff like that. That's how it starts off. And I didn't get much farther than that. Not that I'm not enjoying it, it's just been so hot. And I was basically reading it and like, I'm dying, I want to take a nap. So I have high expectations for this though, because I feel like I like Diana Wynne Jones. I've only read 2 of her books so far, but they were both really big hits. So I hope to not be disappointed with Castle in the Air. So those are all the books that I've read or started in the past few weeks. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of those and your thoughts on them. I'd like to know. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again in another video. Bye!